Welcome back to the War Room. We have an ultra special episode today because today we have on a guy who, honestly, I've been following for probably like 6 or 7 years, Mike, at the Baseball Performance Center in South Jersey, BPC. Mike's the founder, owner, one of the more intriguing stories in all of baseball. Let me first welcome you onto the show, Mike Adams, a Jersey guy, just two Jersey guys talking about it. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me on. Excited to be here.
So for those of you who don't know, Mike, in the private sector, BPC, one of the top pitching performance places, and hitting, honestly, too. Honestly, I was watching Joey Loperfido videos for years before he made it to the big leagues. But guy at South Jersey, internally, we've always called it hallway heat. Like it was always like a blue hallway.
One aisle, yep.
Chase Petty was kind of the big name where I started following super young movement patterns, but not just that. You went to Wagner, big time stuff. You come out, go into the private sector. All of a sudden, you're throwing with Chase Petty. You're up to 97, 98. You're starting to understand stuff. You get signed by the Phillies, get up to AAA. It's such an incredible story. Tell me about the story and the path that led you into professional baseball, the back and forth, all of that.
Yeah, it's actually crazy because, obviously I was pretty much done playing baseball at that point, just trying to take BPC and run with it. We had a really good batch of arms, and I kind of liked pretty much saying, hey, you guys throw 90, so do I. I'm here teaching you. Like, I don't have a job, so throwing 90s not good enough. Like, not throwing strikes is not good enough. And I kind of used myself as like hey, like, I'm better than you, and I have no job type of scenario. And then we started getting a couple guys like Chase, that started to kind of push me, and it was like, I throw harder than you though. And I didn't really like that, but just kind of like, try to learn about movement patterns, mechanics. We first got our hands on the Rapsodo and the TrackMan, and I was like, wow, this all makes sense. I got hit around in college and couldn't throw strikes, and it's because my stuff was terrible. So once we got this Rapsodo, I realized, like, all right, I got a lot to learn here. And then from there, they kind of pushed me a little bit and just kind of used some of the stuff I was learning to implement on myself. And all of a sudden I, woke up one day, went to a workout, got signed by the Phillies. And that's kind of where I think a lot of the learning started to really become even more important, like get around that level of baseball, see how everything works and operates, and kind of, be able to learn more, not just as like a thrower, but as a pitcher. Mm-hmm. It was awesome. It was a whirlwind, man. It went. I can't believe how fast it's going.
I love your path because I think about, honestly, me, like, going to college and like you go through school and classes, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I just need like a degree to like get on board.
Yep.
And now I'm older and I'm like, wow, I would love to go back and learn this, this, and this. And it's kind of your path, right? Like, you go into the private, you're teaching these guys and you're like, oh, wow, if I uncoil like this, if I get down the mound like this, my arm works here. I can do this with the shape of the pitch. Do you think that helped you? Like, I guess more so the maturity of like, I want to learn, this is how I do this, that self-discovery.
Yeah. I mean, I was pretty much the, hey, if I ever got another chance, if I knew what I knew now, scenarios, like I actually got that opportunity, which was, awesome. And I think it definitely helps because I was a guy and like kind of studying just from the stuff standpoint. Like, I was going from a men's league to like AA, AAA, and I had to pretty much, without having been there, I had to believe that, all right, my stuff is good enough to be here. And just knowing the metrics and understanding like what made something a good pitch, I kind of had to have that belief before I even put it to the test. So that definitely helped me a ton. But yeah, I mean, I got to live, like, everyone was like, damn, if I only knew what I knew now, I kind of got to live that out, which was awesome.
And how much, so like, I mean, it's kind of shifting over, and for those listening, we're going to steadily get to the point of like the player development aspect and uniting the scouting side, things to look for. But you talked about the tech. So like TrackMan, how helpful is it as a resource? Think back to when you were in high school and it's like, you go to throw a bullpen. Hey, the slider wasn't working today. It's like, hey, maybe in 5 days, I'll be able to start throwing the slider versus, no, dude, scratch that. That's not working. How helpful is it to see that TrackMan data and know what you're doing from pitch to pitch, edgertronic, whatever it may be?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, at BPC, we don't throw a pitch that's not on a TrackMan. Just because, like, the scenario, like you said, like, hey, my slider wasn't working today. Well, we can pretty much measure if the movement was the same. That way you can decide, was it an execution thing? Was it a sequence thing? Was it just the shape wasn't as good? So it just takes the guessing out. It allows you to believe in your stuff. It allows you to make it a little bit more actionable for the player. Like when we show them a pitch and we say, hey, a lot of guys in the big leagues that have your fastball throw a curveball or a breaking ball similar to this. And it just allows you to get more buy-in. And then, a lot of times it's just going to take the guessing out for the most part. If your fastball is really good one day, like why was it good? And we can figure out, was the movement good? Was the locations that you were throwing it to good? Was how you were mixing everything, what made it good? It just takes out, the guessing and allows you to, actually track and measure progress.
It's so important to like be able to try. I'm thinking about like when I was going to spring training, you're like, hey, yeah, no, my breaking ball feels good.
Mm-hmm.
You might not, and then how do you discover if it really does feel good?
And now we can quantify good.
Yeah, like you couldn't quantify back then, but now you can. And again, the BPC stuff, Instagram, like I love the stuff that you guys post out, and like honestly, it's almost your trademark, the zoom in on the pitch. Like I've been trying to do it. I'm like, I just can't do this. I'm not gonna be able to.
I love just seeing like the actual flight of the pitch. Like everyone kind of says, hey, look at this new breaking ball, and it's like from behind the pitcher, from behind the mound. Like I think that view just gives you a better, like you always wonder, hey, why do you take that pitch right down the middle? And it's like once you get up close, you can see the movement, you can see how sharp it is. It just makes it, a little bit of a better visual.
And those of you who haven't followed, it's an incredible follow because it's always the next arm. Like, who's this next guy up? Like, even from Chase, where it started, to like, oh, this guy. And then you started having all these big leaguers in. I'm thinking like Jack Kashanowitz was a kid I loved back in high school, a PA kid. Now he's coming through doing big things with the Angels. What are some of the core principles for you guys at BPC? Like, what are stuff like, hey, you got to be able to get this in, and this is how we got to move?
Yeah. So obviously, in our opinion, like your stuff, like how the stuff comes out of your hand is affected by how you move. Like how you carry the ball, like you got to be able to, the arm has to be able to, be direct through the catcher. So there's just a couple ways of achieving that. But I mean, pretty much when a new athlete comes in here, like we have them go through an evaluation process. So we have them sit down with our PT and we have them throw, a bullpen, and we pretty much evaluate everything as far as how they're moving, what their stuff's doing, and then what capability do they have from a mobility standpoint that they're doing well or they need to improve. And then from there, we kind of take a 3-pronged attack with, we're going to start you with correctives that you're going to do pre-throw every day, whether that's, aligning the pelvis, whether that's, the relationship between the rib cage and the shoulder, like all stuff that's, a little bit more in depth. And then from there, we kind of take them through their throwing, like, hey, we want you to do these 3-4 drills every day. This is why, this is what we want you to focus on. And then that kind of ties into how the ball comes out of their hand. And then once we kind of get them to the bullpen phase, then from there, we're kind of fine tuning their arsenal, what they do really well, how they can create more unique angles. And then, as far as attacking the zone, neutralizing both sided hitters and we kind of attack it from a few different angles, but we pretty much start from the core principle of just how you're moving affects, where the ball's going and what the ball's doing.
It's incredible. You talk about the aligning the pelvis. I always think like the stacking that you guys do, and to kind of pump you up, and not just BPC, because you guys do such a great job, but there's private sector lesson spots all over the country that do an excellent job. And they've raised the bar and level of development to these kids are getting so good in a hurry, especially cold weather states, right? Like you guys are in Jersey, whether it's in Illinois, Ohio, Missouri, Washington, or wherever it may be, these kids are able to get really good in a hurry because you have gotten so good at providing those lessons for these guys. And I always think like, hey, yes, I could pitch, I could do all these things, but like to actually teach and coach it, it's difficult. It doesn't just mean like, oh, I was good, so now I can pass this down. You have to have the ability to like get through to those kids. And I'm thinking about like one of the first times I went in for a lesson, like when I was done playing, oh, I'm going to coach. And I showed up as like, oh shoot, like I have no idea what I'm doing. Like I have no, and I think a lot of times, even the coaching and the social media world, like, oh, this guy didn't play or this guy didn't do this. Like, hey, that doesn't mean that he can't coach. He may know exactly what those movement patterns, but even more so, he'll understand how to get through to this kid. And I think that's so important and why I love watching you. You did it. You went through it, but you also can coach it.
Yeah, that's definitely the most important piece is just the communication to the athlete. Obviously a lot of people know pitch design, a lot of people understand mechanics, but how you can relay it is the most important piece of anything. And I think for us, like, 3-4 years ago, I would probably look back and say, hey, some of the stuff I was saying was now I would never say again. And that's just part of the learning process. Like when you first start, you only know what you know. And then, through trial and error and 6, 7, 8 years of guys coming in, stuff not working, some stuff working really well for someone and terribly for somebody else. You just kind of sharpen the tools in the toolbox a little bit as a coach. But it's all experience, and we've all, definitely made some guys worse along the way, made some guys better. Like that's just kind of the process. But yeah, I mean, we feel pretty lucky that we're, like for a pro off season, like we're one of the only people that get like pitchers in here for 3, 4, 5 months at a time that have no competition. So to be able to take advantage of that is, my favorite part about it. But yeah, I mean, the communication is obviously the key to everything. Like you got some guys that a lot of times you're talking to them about mechanics. A lot of times you're talking to other guys off the ledge about, different things up and down. So you play a little bit of therapist in there as well. But that's the best part.
It's so important to have those guys, and like even from the college side, and college pitching coaches are awesome. All the college staffs are good, but they also have recruiting responsibilities. They have all these different things. They're limited by NCAA hours. I always, when I was coaching, it was like, hey, why not utilize the private sector? Like I think of probably pro guys that come into you are probably there for like 3 hours. Like
Yeah.
you can't do that in college.
No.
And I think it's silly because you're trying to ramp these guys up. They need more time. Pitching's just
Yeah.
a huge different animal. But I respect the reps that you get because you care so much about each individual kid. It's not like, hey, we also have to win. All you care about is getting whoever's on the mound at that time, getting him better.
Yeah.
Each
And,
guy
and
walks in.
and that's where it's huge, like when you build a relationship with a college or a pitching coach, where we all want the same things. They have so much on their plate, as some of the stuff you just mentioned, even as far as like being one coach managing 20 arms at once is a lot. And there's definitely roles. We kind of talk about like the pilot and the mechanic all the time. Like the pilot flies the plane, but if the engine breaks down, like you kind of have a mechanic there to fix that. And that's kind of where we come in. But yeah, like that's everyone has the end goal there, and for us, like we want to help where we can help at. We don't want to step on people's toes. We want them to kind of lead the player in the right direction. So that's the recipe for a pretty good staff right there. And I think you see more and more colleges start to outsource facilities, and they outsource data teams and that kind of stuff, because there's a lot, and if you can manage it and build a system, like you can build a really good staff.
For sure. Now talk about this stacking. You talked about the pelvis, because like when I think about what you guys do, you stack so well each of your guys. Now Chase was the poster child. You, if any, move the way Chase Petty does, and I'm a huge believer at times like most kids succeed in spite of their coaching. Like Chase Petty is going to hop on the mound. He moves at a different level. For those of you who don't know, AAA first rounder of the Twins. He's now with the Reds. Maybe by the time we're talking about this, he's making his big league debut. We'll see, hopefully. But like, it wasn't just Chase. The next guy moves on. Each of these guys kept moving. But I'm so interested about the stacking and what your belief is with the ability to utilize the lower half.
Yeah. So obviously, when we look at a pitcher at foot strike, like we want them to be stacked up and down. So like from behind, it's like you have the shoulders, the pelvis, hips, like over top of the middle of the body. And we want that to be, pretty north and south, so it can rotate piece by piece, right? And that's going to allow for you to rotate as efficiently as possible. If you have like your chest super forward, and your hips back, it's going to be hard for you to rotate underneath of that, if you're not stacked. And the same thing, when you look at it from the side, if you're really forward, like it's going to cause the arm to kind of go to unwind down into the ground, and it's just going to cause issues when you go to rotate. So that's kind of the biggest thing, is the more you can, the more and the longer you can keep the body stacked, like the more efficiently you rotate. And we all know that, the faster and more efficiently you rotate, the more strikes you're going to throw, the harder you're going to throw. And, you're going to have more capabilities to make the ball do what you want.
This is probably super intricate, because I learned so much from watching your stuff. So like the actual pivot foot, the balance foot, I'm always like, okay, keep it parallel to the rubber so you can move efficiently. But you guys actually have had like success. And I think you may have done studies with like, no, it doesn't matter. You can get into this coil. What do you teach with regards to that?
Yeah, so I think there's a little bit of like, a lot of people say, hey, this guy has some sort of bias, so he can't get into this position. And, we're kind of along the lines where, all right, well, why does he have the bias? Like we have athletes for enough times that for enough length of time that we can get them all to like, if your pelvis gets tilted one way, like you don't have as much IR, right? Well, we can get the pelvis back to neutral so you can access that. So that's kind of like the route that we go. Like, most guys are going to utilize a coil. It just depends what that coil looks like, where it's different. Like some guys are going to have, pretty up and down shin angle. They're going to be super turned. Like if you look at like a Chapman, but all the, high level throwers coil, it just looks a little bit different. And that's where, a lot of people get it confused where it seems like a big turn where your back is like showing to the catcher. And that's not always like when we mention the coil, like we're just talking about the pelvis solely. So that could look different for every guy.
Is it easy to teach that? Because it's something like I'm out on the road, right? These uncommitted freshmen, sophomores. Oh man, this guy's throwing 90. Like, oh, I don't really care. How does his arm move? How does he move down the mound? But like those guys could really uncoil well and move down the mound, even if they're not bumping those huge velocities. Like that's something I pick up. Hey, this is super dynamic. He gets down the mound really well. But can you teach that? Like, say you have a 15-year-old, obviously doesn't have the strength, probably going through puberty. More is going to come, right, with velocity. How do you help him move? And is it something you feel pretty confident that you can teach?
Yeah, so that's definitely like how you mentioned like the core values earlier. Like the coil is something that we really value. And especially like for guys that you just mentioned, like high school guys, they're not fully mature. They're not, meet the absolute strength yet. So for them, like we want them to move really well. And that's why it becomes more important because they don't have those things to kind of lean back on. They don't have the strength. They don't have, the size yet. So how they move becomes even more important at that point. And to not just throw harder, but also like to throw strikes and stay healthier. So that's something that, we work on them every day. We have a bunch of different drills that we have them do, and all of our coaches, we have 5 of us that like work on the floor now. Like that's something that we're all looking for. And that's all, an important piece of the delivery.
Yeah, you guys have the fancy new facility. You're not really in the hallway. It's a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
You guys,
I know we're bougie now. We're got out of the oil company, got 3 mounts now, which is nice.
yeah, you better not lose that grid, or else I'm going to come down there. And
That's what everyone says, but we won't.
What about like, so from the scouting side, and this is the war room, a lot of stuff we do here is with draft. And when you go into the draft, if you're in an organization, I always look at it as what can we not teach? We are paying for things that we cannot teach. We are paying for the fact that Jack Kashanowitz is 6'5", 6'6", and throws 100 and can replicate what he does. Yep. What are things that you feel like, hey, yeah, we can teach that? I go back to now when people are coming through, especially velocity, it's like, dude, everybody can teach velocity. Like if at 15 you just start eating pizza and cheeseburgers, you'll get bigger and you'll throw harder. What are the things that you think like, hey, we can get this done in an instant?
So I think for us, like, at BPC specifically, like we love to see the guys that come in that have a couple shapes that are probably, your 88 to 92. They have a good feel for their ball. Like we really feel like we can take those guys and take them to the next level. But I think, as of recent, like we've had a lot of guys that have big fastballs that might not command it as well. And I think with just some direction stuff and like how you can target the specific areas, I feel like we can do a pretty good job of getting them in the zone a little bit more. But that's the interesting part is I'm like every organization pretty much has their niche that they're going for. Like you mentioned, the Brewers, like they love stuff. They draft stuff, and they kind of go that route where we're gonna draft the, every arm that we think has upper echelon big league stuff, and we're gonna turn them into pitchers. And then you have some organizations that value, hey, like we'd rather take the guy that's 88, 92, who was a Friday guy at, a big time school and really commands the ball. And then they try to, obviously raise the velo, continue to tick their stuff up and go that route. So everyone kind of has their niche, but we get guys long enough where we like both. But I mean, obviously in today's day and age, like the game's shrinking, obviously the more high end stuff you have that we can kind of teach them to be pitchers is probably the route I would pick if I had to pick one.
Okay. It's because I've seen, I think the driveline guys did a good job with it. Lance Brzezowski does like a great job with the Stuff Plus models.
Yep.
It seems like the shift away from like, just full electric single pitch versus, hey, this kid already comes in with a package arsenal. No, the stuff has not jumped yet, but he at least had the way I look at it, he at least has like 8 years of trying to throw a slider and a curveball, and there's enough shape that we think we can take this. Do you think that like more teams are going to start doing that?
I think so. I think now, like with, obviously now that they have like the K zone and like what the zone is today, like you have to throw strikes. Like now, before it was like, hey, everybody just throw hard and
Yeah.
you'll probably get a chance, but you have to throw strikes. And that's all the way up through the minor leagues. And even in college, like you see plenty of guys that have, high octane stuff that don't throw that many innings just because the zone's so small, metal bats. But yeah, I mean that's kind of the name of the game, is figuring out which guys you like more, how to value them. And as you mentioned, it used to be like, hey, throw a 4-seam and a slider as hard as you can and throw 2 really good pitches. And now it's, you see pitchers adding shapes, 5, 6, 7 shapes deep, every year. Even guys that are coming off of like an all-star year or a Cy Young votes, like you see them add pitches. And that's kind of the way the game's going, is being able to throw as many shapes as possible, randomize it, and not let anyone cheat to anything. And I'm sure he'll switch back around at some point, but it's just a revolving door of, pretty much old school, new school, and it just keeps rotating back and forth.
It's amazing how cyclical the sport is. And you always talk like, right, the high spin vert, high vert, everybody was chasing that, let's say 5 years ago.
Yep.
And with the big downer breaking balls, I think that like, ESPN, or not ESPN. ESPN does a great job with especially the college coverage, but like the hitters being so far behind is not true to me. Like I've been out on the road, like I watch these high school kids. I'm seeing 94 to 96. Like I feel like on the regular, but the 8-hole sophomore kid is like taking daddy hacks, and it's almost like, and especially college. You talked about the big time programs. You have big stuff. Kids come into high leverage situations, smaller zones. You fall behind. They have data sets where like, we're eliminating this half, you're only swinging at this pitch. The plans are so good that now like, hey, these hitters are pretty caught up.
Yeah. And that's kind of why the trends keep switching. Like you talk about, like the sweeper, for example, 2 years ago that came in the league, and it was like, wow, nobody can hit this pitch. Immediately the next year, the performance just starts to deteriorate, and now it's like, hey, sweepers aren't that good, and you'll probably start to see that with the splitter, and that's a pitch that pretty much exceeds the models every time.
Well, let me ask you about split. Do you think people can get paid for just splitter? I'm like looking at a lot of high school guys, and I asked the scouting departments, do kids get paid for splitters? Because I'm seeing some pretty good ones.
Well, and it's one of those. So that's one of the issues with the splitter, is that obviously it's best suited underneath the zone and relies on swing and miss, right? So it's not a pitch that you're going to throw in this very often. But if you get ahead, people just can't lay off of it. It's really late. You can't see the spin off of it. It almost knuckles, and it's becoming like a big pitch. Obviously, like the one Sasaki's throwing is incredible. Like it starts at your head and ends up in the dirt. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough pitch to deal with.
Do you think like, so this is probably the super old school, like the injury factor of like the spreading of the fingers, like, is there more? Have you seen anything on that?
I think it can definitely like if you haven't thrown a splitter a lot, like obviously like there's a lot. They talk about how like when they teach it in like the Dominican, like how they kind of hold a splitter really young, and they always kind of keep it in their fingers like this, so their fingers get used to that. So there's definitely like, some weirdness the first couple of times you throw it. You could run into some forearm stuff, but I mean, I don't see how it has more stress on the arm than any other pitch, as long as you kind of move into it with the right ideas.
It's interesting. We've had some talks internally, like I think MLB put out that report on just the arm injuries and all the stuff with that. I'm intrigued, like if they ever change to a rule, where like the injured reserve list or whatever that they started penalizing for when pitchers got hurt, and they started incentivizing health, right? I'm a huge, like, I think they need to move Major League Baseball back to like the starter model. Like those starters sell, right? Seeing Kershaw versus DeGrom, like Sunday Night Baseball, I'm tuning in because of this. Seeing Clemens versus whoever, Pettit, whatever it may be. Hey, incentivize 200 innings, incentivize this and that. If it moves closer to that, like if they ever did do that, do you think the velocity would move down? Like, hey, we're going to start valuing the 91 to 94 guys versus the injury prone 97 to 101s.
I mean, Definitely a little bit. I mean, you start to see, I know DeGrom was mentioning something the other day about how he has watched Verlander, kind of tick his velocity down and just go and reach back for it when he needs it.
Mhm.
On the arm injury side, like I'm a guy that I think a lot of the injuries come from pitchers being underprepared. Like the more we start to put parameters on them and the more pitch limits we put, like the injuries are still skyrocketing. Like I think that guys show up to spring training not prepared. And I think the more that we baby them and the more that we let them throw less, like, they're not building a stronger arm. They're not,
Yeah.
promoting UCL thickness. Like they're not really doing the things that you want in an arm. And you get why people do it because you're trying to be safe with them. But also at the same time, like you're doing them a due diligence because they're not really prepared. Like we kind of talk about that all the time. Like we like to have our guys throw a lot. Like when they come home like they're going to expect to, when you get to spring training, like you should expect to throw on the mound or in a game every third day.
Yeah.
So when you get down there doing like, one bullpen on a Friday and then one touch and feel on a Tuesday, like you're going to be shocked a little bit when you get down there. That was the hardest part for me, I thought. And that was one of the first things I learned is like, I would come every Friday, throw a live AB. I'd throw it as hard as I can. I'm like, dude, this is great. And then when you get there, like you throw a bullpen, 2 days off, bullpen, 2 days off game, 2 days off game. And it's like, if you're not prepared for that, like your arm is going to take a beating. And obviously a lot of the injuries happen early in the year. The majority of the injuries happen at that time. So it's pretty alarming that I feel like, we can't really let pitchers take it easy all off season, then let them show up the spring and just throw them to the wolves. So I think that's one of the biggest issues. But that's me saying that as a player.
Yeah.
I know like if you talk to, PTs and doctors, like they obviously want guys to be a little bit more passive, but you can't,
I'm with you.
Like arm if you don't throw,
I was always like, I had to throw nonstop and I always felt good about it. And then especially in spring, I always thought like spring training, I'd ramp up, get there. It was like everything just changes when you get there because it's so structured. They're dealing with so many guys. It's hard to figure out the innings, and then the opposite side, like the top prospects, like even like Chase Petty, for example, like kid went in trying to make the team. Like, Hey, why are things happening with all these other guys? Well, this kid rolled up in February trying to peak. Yep. Like at February 28th, he was thinking like, hey, I'm trying to make this squad.
Yeah.
He's not thinking like, hey, I'll be good in July.
Yeah. And that's a crazy part. Like, so him and Jack are good examples. Like they're young guys in big league camp. Jack started the first game of the season in spring training and Chase started the second game. So for those guys, like they go there and 2 weeks prior, like they're throwing 3 innings against the Dodgers. So it's like 3 weeks prior, they're just throwing nice and easy bullpens inside. Like that's not really preparing them. So that's why we do it like that. Like you'll see videos of them, like Jack throws 98 3 days a week when he's home in the offseason. He's a starter. Chase is the same thing. When they throw, like they don't throw it not hard. And there's oftentimes where we're like, hey, maybe not today. Let's back it down a little bit. But those are good examples of guys who are high octane throwers, who throw like that all the time. Brett Witrowski is another one that's like that. Like when those guys come in and throw, they're throwing the ball hard. Like they throw with each other. And that's how they get the arm prepared for when they go out there. If they're healthy or not, they're trying to compete and throw hard and get guys out. So we like to get them ready ahead of time. And we don't want them to run into soreness that they haven't, hit yet when they get out there.
Those are all triple digit guys that you have who each move uniquely and have unique shapes. So which is like, because a lot of facilities you go in, like it's cookie cut, right? Like this guy, I can go around even from the hitting side of things, right? Around the country, it's like this guy goes to this place, this guy goes to that place. You can see, and I'm not like super update even on the hitting, like, okay, he's keeping the barrel in the zone, like, right? Those guys who like two-handed, don't even finish. But like it's everywhere has its pockets. Let's talk a little bit about what you see as the future of pitching. One of the ideas that I've been spitting out for years now, and I honestly think it'll come over from Asia. I think like the Japanese will eventually do it, is changing slots to get after like holes in guys' swings, right? Like, hey, this doesn't match up. My over the top, Aaron Judge is meeting plane here. Hey, instead I'm going to change and go like whatever it may be. I feel like eventually somebody's going to do that. Do you see something like that coming?
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see it. I mean, you kind of see it a little bit already with your guys like Nestor Cortez, who
There
changed
you
the
go.
slots and they kind of changed the timings. But I mean, it's one of those things where hitters are getting good. Like they're used to seeing everything now. I remember a couple years ago when Kyle Bodie was like, at some point we're just going to see guys throw 105, and I was like, are we really? Like, I don't know if that's really going to happen. And that's, we're starting to see that's what it is. Like I looked at the top 15 velocities the other day in spring training, and it was like number 13 was like 103. So there were 14 or 12 guys that threw harder than that. So yeah, I mean, it's gonna, any way guys can get an advantage. I know when they mentioned talking about like changing the mound or lowering it or moving it back, like I almost think that would be worse because we're gonna have more time to make the ball move. If you
Oh
lower
yeah.
the mound, like you're gonna have even more. Like now that ride has no downhill on it, so like it's gonna continually change. It's gonna be fun to see like what happens to it. I mean, obviously you got, the guy from Mississippi State that Seattle drafted that throws with both hands. Like I've already seen a couple guys on Instagram that are like, hey, my son's 8, he throws with both hands, and I'm like, that could be something that becomes a thing too. It's crazy.
And he was curious because his splits, like left hand, like he obviously had, and he's awesome, but like right handed was electric stuff.
Yeah.
And then left handed was like, hey, they hit like 310 off you left hand. You might want to just go, but I'm sure he's going to continue to do it. Like Seattle's actually doing a great job with the arms.
And it's like interesting. You could use him 2 days in a row as one righty and one lefty. You could use him for a whole game. Like you could use him every single day, like every other day for righty. Like there's so many options that you could do. I don't even know what the best one would be. But it's impressive to watch somebody do that.
So a kid like that, talk a little bit more about like the scouting aspect. So like I'm picking your brain, like what should I be looking for at a game? You talk about Lou Sinche, who's going to be great for the Mariners, but like he was an insane athlete too. Like he was a two-way, I think he hit in the fall for Mississippi State, but like I'm always going out like find the best athletes. Kid who looks like a shortstop on the mound. Things are moving really well. He's got a quick arm. What are some things that you look for where like, hey, this kid's got a shot?
Yeah, I think if I'm looking for, if we're looking for 3 or 4 things, like you said, you're looking for a good athlete. 2, you're looking for a pretty good mover. You want a clean set of mechanics. You obviously want velocity, and you want to know that, the cleaner their mechanics are, the healthier that they're going to be. And then, I think on my end, like you're looking for a swing and miss in the zone. Like that's a pretty good predictor of how good guys' stuff is. Like a lot of guys rely on, chase and swings and misses, but like if you're getting swings and misses over the plate, like that's a good sign that your stuff is pretty good. And then obviously, like we always talk about, just obviously strike percentage is one, but just the strike percentage, the race to 2 strikes, and just kind of getting ahead early, like those would be the things that I would focus on. I know stuff plus is a huge thing, but I definitely think it's starting to get to the point where when you throw 4 or 5 pitches, like obviously if you throw 5 of the best pitches of all time, like you're probably going to do pretty good. But there's a world where each of those fit into their own role in the arsenal, and that allows you to, get lefties and righties out. It allows you to tunnel a little bit. It allows you to just have so many options to so many quadrants that not everything has to be plus. So that's like if I'm building a pitcher, obviously athletic, velocity, get whiffs in the zone, and a strike thrower.
All the good, the goodie bag stuff, the command aspect that you're talking about, like you touched on a little bit earlier, like how do you feel that you can help command? I always think back to Coach Leach, a former college-based football coach, rest in peace. It was like there's a certain year where like, hey, the command just doesn't get better. Do you think like that at all? Because there's like certain kids, and you talk about the stuff plus models, and I'll look at them. There's always like a handful, like, yeah, stuff plus is great. This guy literally throws the ball out over the backstop every time we see him.
Yep. I'm glad you asked this, because this is like something that we've been talking about a lot. I feel like a lot of command issues are like decision-making problems, like guys throwing the wrong pitch in certain counts, not knowing, like, if you're a pitcher, you need to know what pitch you can throw in the zone at the highest clip and what pitch is going to get balls put in play. When you're in a 2-0 count, like you're probably not trying to throw a 4-seam up and away for a swing and miss. Like we want something down the middle, and we want something that they can get out on. So I think decision-making is a huge issue. Like kind of like you talked about the splitter, like that's a really good example of a pitch that you shouldn't throw 2-0 ever. So like if you're a 4-seam splitter guy, like that's kind of where you run into problems. You now have to be, really fine with the fastball, and then the splitter in a 2-0 count, like it's going to get so many takes, so you throwing it actually in the zone is what's going to be hard. So I think there's a ton of that goes on. Same thing with the changeup and curveballs. Like, guys, everybody wants every pitch to have the most movement possible. Like, I want my curveball to have -20, or I want my slider to have -20. Like, this is what KC does really well. Like, he has all of these options. He can go to his four seam. He can throw the hard cutter that he throws all over the zone, that he can throw in 2-2 full counts, 0-0, and then he has the curveball he can put him away with, and the slider. So he has a pitch built for every situation, and a lot of people don't have that. And obviously, you run into the mechanical point. Like, there's obviously a ton of things mechanically that you can do to help you, get more energy through the target. And then I think another big thing is the targeting. If you're a guy that always misses arm side, no matter righty or lefty, like, you should have your target set up glove side. So that way you either, hit the spot right on the black, or your misses now get back over the plate. And it's the same thing the opposite route. If you pull the ball, like, let's throw everything arm side, and when you pull it, at least you have a chance to get it back over the plate. I think there's like those three things, if you can kind of harness them, I think you can throw more strikes than you think you can.
Okay, so there's a chance to make some advancement. I would like huge believers like staying athletic, and I've loved. Honestly, I watched so much pitching stuff and a lot of hitting things, and honestly, a lot of catching stuff. I love watching catchers.
Yeah, catching's becoming super important. Like we talked about the setup and stealing strikes and like the game calling. Like, if you can have a good relationship with your catcher, like we talked to that huge. We're like, hey, why don't you throw the cutter today? He's like, the catcher just never called it. And I was like, well, the catcher doesn't rock the 5 ERA either that you have. Like, you need to be able to, you need to call, it's your career, your stats. Like, you need to call what you want. And having a good relationship there can, alleviate a lot of those issues.
It's so important. I love a good receiver. Like, obviously, I'm sure you watch for, like, this guy losing strikes nonstop. Like, nothing drives me nuts.
Yeah, it's that stuff gives me nightmares.
It's the strike aspect is so important, though. Like, the race to 2 strikes, getting ahead. Hitter, again, tying back to what we were talking about at the beginning. Like, hitters are eliminating stuff so quickly. I'll watch it tonight in the SEC. Like, they have so much data. They watch so much. They know what this kid's throwing in this count. They are eliminating stuff and almost saying, actually, I saw it, one former big leaguer talking about it recently, just like, don't train to hit like the filthy slot. You're not going to hit it. Yeah. So, like, be ready for the pitch in the zone and do that. I think Aaron Judge does such a great job. I'm always looking, like, long limb guys never gave me trouble. Like, there's so many holes to it, but he holds so well. Like, if you miss on this spot, I am going to do real damage.
Yep. And those are like the hardest guys to face, obviously, is like the guys that are patient, the guys that know the zone, and the guys that aren't going to chase anything out of the zone. And that's why they're so good, because they just put themselves into those counts all day, and then you have to come over the middle, and that's where they do the damage. I think that's why, like, the cutter is becoming such a big pitch, is because it's one of those pitches where you're not really going to back up a cutter. And if you do, it's like 90 miles an hour up and in. It's a weird shape like that you're not used to. It's something that you can throw hard. So, like, guys that like to be really aggressive with every pitch, like, it's something that's short. You can start it on the plate. It's going to finish on the plate. And it's also something that, like, guys can put in play, they can get in front of, they can jam them, and like they can get out on it. And I think that's why you see so many guys adding that pitch, is because in a 2-0, like, I'm probably throwing 2 cutters up there. And if they don't hit it, then you go to then you haven't even shown them your best pitch yet. And that's kind of like the route, like, where the cutter and sinker are starting to come back into play, is because those pitches are stuff that they're going to have a high end zone rate. Guys are going to swing at them because they're hard. And, you're not just going to let people wait you out all day.
It's especially the sink, and like going back, like, sinkers, so many guys were chasing 4-seam for so long that hitters, right, for like their whole youth, for 6-7 years, yeah, eventually they're going to get to the top of the zone. I'm going to get to the top of this and be able to drive it. I'm sure some kids reach pro ball and have never seen a sinker, like, legit. Right? You're right on right, and you're like, who in the world, Lance Lynn, what in the world is this old man doing to me right now? Like, where is this ball going?
There was a couple years where it was like, yo, you throw a sinker? That's stupid. Like, why would you do that? Sinkers suck. But now it's like the sinker sweeper became a big fad, and now having both is the way to go. So it's crazy to see just how it all, keeps coming back around again.
Were you down at the wake pitching?
Yep.
Because I was talking, like, Moose, Corey Mascara does a great job, obviously, the wake pitching lab or whatever.
Mhm.
But he was talking about how dead zone fastballs are coming back in vogue. And then on ABCA, I asked Scott Brown of Vanderbilt, like, what is he talking about with this? Brownie gave like an unreal, like impromptu 5 minute, like he broke down
Mhm.
everything. I was like, how do I just like stand next to you for the next 3 weeks? But like
Yeah.
the dead zone fastball, right? Everybody like he's got a dead zone fastball. What's up
Mhm.
with that?
Well, now, so much of it's about angles, right? So if you have a super low release height, as long as the ball stays on the upward trajectory, it doesn't matter if it runs, it doesn't matter what it does. Like it's just the angle, the VAA is tough for hitters. And I think it's just one of those scenarios where everyone's so used to really good carry or really good sink. And now you get guys that kind of throw those runners in there that are kind of giving you fits. But it's just adapting. It's doing what people aren't doing. It's kind of getting ahead of it. But fastballs in general, like, if you're a guy that can hide your fastball, you can not throw it at like 60, 65, 70% of the time. Like you throw mostly cutter, slider, like then any fastball metric, take the metric out. If you can execute it to the top of the zone, it's going to give people issues. And obviously VAA like is built on location a ton. So like even bad fastball shapes, like if you can live at the upper quadrant, like you're going to get swings and misses up there and you're going to set up the rest of your stuff.
It's interesting. I always like because of the facility, right? TrackMan, you have all this data. You almost have to stress to the kid, like, hey, this data set does not give you a golden right to get whiffs. The
Yeah.
hitter's still going to try to make contact on you.
Mhm.
But it's the most basic, the way I look at it is always like the optical illusion of it, right? Low slot with carry, high slot with sink. Like
Yep.
that's like from there, we're going to move off of that. But even more so, and like Chase was a great job of this because Chase is a confident kid. He picks his pitches with moxie. And I'll see guys throughout the summer where, TrackMan's running, he's got a dead zone fastball, right? At 16. He's going to be dependent on the velo curve.
Yep.
Yeah, but like this is that dude. He's got moxie. He's got a chance to make adjustments. He's athletic. Like those are things that I think kids have to understand. Like, hey, I may be here, but this is not the end all be all. Like you can go to BPC. You're going to be
Yep.
able to make adjustments,
And that's one thing I definitely give him credit for, because obviously like in high school he was like this guy's his hat falls off, he throws 100, he's got one pitch, and like if you watch him pitch now, like he throws two different fastball shapes, he throws a four seam up, he throws a sinker. His best pitch is a cutter that's like in the low 90s, that gets a ton of swings and misses, and he's like much more of a pitcher now than I think anyone would have expected. But he's a prime example of a guy that like obviously in high school his fastball got a tons of swings and misses. It was 100 miles an hour, and then he got out there, he learned like, hey, I'm throwing 100. Like even when I throw a good sinker, guys put it in play. Even when I throw a good four seam, guys can still put it in play. So he learned early that you have to have weapons to go to. He has the slider. Like we worked on his changeup a lot this offseason. So like he's bit like if you go watch him, like you don't see a ton of fastballs out of him, and he has two different ones. So he's another good example of like how his one fastball that's in a vacuum not that good, but when he uses both of them together with the cutter, like he gets a lot of strikeouts on the fastball, just due to being able to utilize everything else around it.
It's incredible. And I think of Rick Porcello as like the poster child of this. I don't know. He's probably a little bit older than you, but you probably knew who he was, right?
Yeah, I knew of him. Yep.
And in high school, Rick Porcello, Cy Young Award winner, Seton Hall prep, big time first rounder, Tigers. But like he was like 98 to 101. Like this was like the big stuff, but then realizes how he can sink it, but the longevity of his career and to get on the map. And I'm sure Chase has learned this now, right? Like in high school, like, hey, I'm a first round, I'm moving all this. Look at this guy's big velo. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you get in the pro ball and you start thinking like, yo, that second contract's pretty nice. Mm-hmm. How do I get to that? Jack's probably thinking about it now. Like, how do I get to that next contract? Because I want to be good. I want to be great. And to be great as a starting pitcher, you got to post innings and get outs.
Yep. And that's kind of what the most impressive thing about some of these guys are, is like, you look at a guy like Aaron Nola, you look at a guy like Zach Wheeler, guys that are just, they are always the same year in and year out. Like velocity is good. They're reliable. They always throw strikes. Like that is so impressive of them to do that. We see so many guys that like come back and like the next year they're like down 5 miles an hour. They can't throw strikes and stuff's all over the map. That's what makes them so impressive. But that's one of the things that's cool to see. Like like the guys you mentioned, like Chase and Jack, like the maturity there where when they come in, like obviously they throw hard, but we spend so much time working on like how they're going to get hitters out, not just like throwing 100 into the net all day. Like there's so much time spent on shapes and things that like we know are going to help them perform better. Cause obviously that's like, and that's one thing Jack does really well. Like he has a good sinker. He goes to the well on it. And like this offseason, it was like, hey, you know, you have one pitch. Good. We need you to have a breaking ball that you can throw in the zone, maybe two of them. And you need to utilize the changeup you need to utilize the four seam at the top of the zone. And he was throwing his sinker at like 75%. So 3 out of every 4, you're getting a sinker. Like guys are going to go up and look for it. So now this year, like trying to lower the sinker usage, make it a little bit more random for him, utilize the four seam and go to the breaking ball early. And you know, he's thrown pretty well doing that. But even a guy who's like is throwing 98, 99, 100 mile an hour sinkers, like can't just do that for, you know, years in a row and not expect people to catch on.
This is, I don't know if you're teaching it yet or if anybody can ever teach it, but the hanging backup slider that is like my brother
Slider
and I
up gets a ton of
it's
people.
like, and in college, like you'll see it, and like because the hitter's so used to, right, like this pitch is supposed to do that, and instead it just stays there. It's like, you can almost see the hitter take it and be like, that was a bad pitch.
Yep.
Oh yeah, it was a strike too.
Yep. And that, like that's the same idea with the cutter is like when you back up a cutter, it's kind of like a bad fastball. So like you're expecting it to cut and then it doesn't, and then it's in the zone and you're still swinging and you're like, you get a swing and miss on a bad pitch. And that's why it's one of those pitches where like it's you can't really hang it. Like you could throw honestly, it'll get more hit if you just throw a good one like down the middle than you would if you threw a bad one.
Yeah, I'll always chuckle at it like, oh, the hanging slider, good pitch there. You had no
idea.
Up
and in, like they don't know how to handle it because it is in the zone and it's not doing what they expect it to do.
And they're not used to it, right? The slider machine's not throwing that pitch.
Like everything down and away with the movement. So
somebody's coming to that. But Mike, this has been incredible. I'd love to have you on again because whenever. I'm going to leave this and I'm going to remember things and somebody's going to listen to this, be like, how did you not ask Mike Adams this and that? Like I got way more stuff. Been such a huge fan of what you guys have been doing. I love the athleticism that you guys bring to the mound, especially, and even guys all over the country. I love watching pitchers be athletes, move well, keep the arms going. I love the new age. We are in a golden age of player development. You guys are doing such an incredible job there. We didn't even get a chance to talk about the hitting. Maybe we'll do that next time.
Yeah, sure.
Like keep posting because I swear that Joey Loperfido for that COVID year, you guys are hitting. And I would watch videos and be like, hey, this kid's got a really nice swing. And then like the COVID draft comes and now he's doing great things. It's keep posting those guys.
Excited about him. Yeah, no, I appreciate all that. We can come on and talk baseball whenever you want.
For sure. Now, I got to get down there. I'm actually going to bring Rhett the Jet, my producer, down to just do a full hallway heat session. Can we go back to the whole facility? Do you still have the blue wall?
We can do the whole tour. It's only a couple miles away. We can go back, see what it used to look like, now to what it is. Love to.
Amen to that. Well, Mike Adams from BPC, Baseball Performance Center in South Jersey. They're always throwing up the blue hallway heat at all times. Mike, I'll be in Jersey in a few weeks, so maybe we'll link up then.
Yeah, let me know when you're down. We'll hang out.
Until next time, we'll see all of you at the ballpark.